Thank you, Abdurrahman. Thank you, everyone. Welcome, everyone, to the side event entitled Saudi Arabia's Efforts Towards Achieving the Sustainable Development Agenda for 2030. My name is Faisal Gattan. I'm the Assistant Deputy Minister at the Ministry of Economy and Planning in Saudi Arabia, and I'm responsible for sustainable development and the SDGs more broadly. I'm joined by a panel of my esteemed colleagues from different ministries. I have with us Mr. Mohammed Al Ghadi, who is the General Manager for Performance Measurement at the Ministry of Education, Mr. Muhannad Al Isa, who is the Assistant Deputy Minister for Job Localization Nationalization, Dr. Mit'ab from the Ministry of Human Resources and Social Development, and Dr. Mit'ab Al-Itabi, who is the General Manager for the National Environment Strategy from the Ministry of Environment and Agriculture. And last but not least, Dr. Fatima Al-Auf, who is the Vice President at the General Authority for Statistics. We are all very excited to be with you today to speak to you about where we are today in our development journey and what is ahead for Saudi Arabia as it pertains to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. So if you'll allow me to begin, first I want to just welcome everyone and to just state that we are all very excited to be with you on the sidelines of the high-level political forum and actively participating in this very important dialogue that touches on the various social and economic strategies that we are pursuing in Saudi Arabia. We think this as a perfect time for us to pause and reflect and learn from one another and share what our experiences have been thus far. The objective of this event is to do just that. It is to take a moment to reflect on where we are today in our development trajectory and try to think about ways that we can pivot and improve and strengthen our development story and learn from our esteemed colleagues from different countries who are eagerly pursuing similar agendas and trying to get to better development outcomes for their populations. Just to quickly describe where we are today, since the SDGs have been approved and sort of as countries have been moving towards achieving the SDGs in 2016, Saudi Arabia has made very significant commitments to achieving the SDGs, and we have actively participated over the past 5 to 6 years in the international debates. Most recently, we have submitted a strategy and roadmap towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals and improving our performance and ranking as it pertains to the SDGs, and we are waiting for all government entities to take on this ambitious roadmap and begin achieving the various objectives. Moreover, we have established the Sustainable Development Steering Committee, which the Minister of Economy and Planning chairs, and it has over 18 representatives from different government entities, all of which worked together to produce the SDG roadmap and outline its targets and its indicators and where we want to be by 2030, and proposed a series of policies and initiatives to help get to that point. And then lastly, a few weeks ago, we signed the UN country framework with the United Nations. And in this document, we outline exactly how we will go from today all the way to 2030 and the various milestones that we want to achieve in strong collaboration and partnership with our friends at the United Nations. So without further ado, let us dive into the debate and discussions that we have today. We want to use this time to highlight and showcase what it is that we have been doing as it pertains to the 5 development goals that have really been at the focus of the high-level political forum this year. We'll start with quality education, and I will go to my colleague, Mr. Mohammed Al-Ghadi, and the first question or the first prompt is for you. Saudi Arabia is performing well on education, and we have seen a steady improvement over the past several years, and its activities are definitely on track, and we expect our performance to continue in this direction. Of course, COVID-19 has brought with it a slew of challenges and sort of hurdles that we need to overcome in order to maintain, in order to bring students back into the classroom and really get ourselves back on track in terms of improving these educational outcomes. In response to COVID, what were some of the efforts that Saudi Arabia has done or enacted in order to transform the education system in Saudi Arabia and really think about these long-term development outcomes? The floor is yours, Mr. Mohammed.
Welcome. It's a pleasure to be a part of this distinguished forum, one global community to move forward together and to achieve a more sustainable future for our communities. First, I would like to highlight that the Kingdom policy is focused to provide good quality education for everyone. Second, the Saudi Vision 2030 set ambitious goals for enhancing the education system. The goal is to prepare future generation of highly skilled, knowledgeable youth that embodies the values and national identity of Saudi Arabia, and for the student to be active participant in the global community. The reform process was accomplished by careful planning, evidence-based decision-making, and benchmarking to identify best practices and key challenges, as well as policy response. Leveraging and mobilizing resources toward the vision goals, building resilience by embracing agility and adjusting the practices to respond to changes. So the COVID-19 pandemic, as we all know, disrupted the education service globally. Schools closure had potential to derail the educational progress made by the Kingdom, which had to quickly adapt to alternative plans to support education continuity, while mitigating potential risk of learning losses. The Saudi 2030 education reforms and investment made by the Kingdom pre-pandemic set a solid foundation for the Kingdom to respond to the crisis. And it was not only considered a crisis, but also an opportunity to accelerate reform efforts. To mitigate the impact of COVID-19 on education, the Kingdom supported the continuity of education by shifting to distant learning, first establishing a national level distant learning platform, which we call Madrasti, which served more than 6 million students, which counts to 98% of the student populations, as well as providing synchronous and asynchronous learning for those who doesn't have access to technology. The Kingdom has launched 25 educational channels covering all K-12 levels, as well as creating a platform for the young children's kindergarten, call it Rawdati, transferring the content into digital material, included augmented and virtual reality, that makes the learning journey more effective and more attractive. Engaging teachers, parents, and students in the learning process together through parental programs and a unified platform to engage with the community. We call it Tawasul. The distant learning platform has been also prized and recognized by well-known world organizations. The UNESCO has chosen Madrasti among the best for international pioneers for e-learning and distant education models. And the report entitled Rebuilding Quality Learning for All in the Middle East and North Africa, 3 well-known organizations, the World Bank, UNESCO, and UNICEF, praised and recognized the platform as one of the largest virtual schools and Arab world. In addition, being recognized by other global organizations such as OECD and OLC, which is specialized in e-learning platforms. And the distant learning platform was also nominated by UNESCO for Prince Hamad Al Khalifa Prize for the use of information communication technologies and education. It was among the first 5 best platforms models among 10 international nominees. Several features distinguish the Madrasti platform and gain international reputation, among which this e-learning platform has been completely developed by Saudi nationals and totally owned by the Ministry of Education. The partnership between MOE and Microsoft created a comprehensive e-learning solution by integrating Microsoft products and Madrasti platform. And this helped teachers to plan their lessons online and consists of learning management system, e-content aligned with objective, assignment or exams from test bank. Teachers could set and receive homework and give feedback online. Teaching environment has been improved. There were even virtual labs simulating real-world science experience and experiments. The initial projection for the platform were 70 to 80%, but within 2 weeks of the school year, the platform login were reporting 98% of the student population. The platform served more than 6 million students, K-12 across the kingdom, and has received more than 6 billion visits, implemented more than 260 million virtual classes, and more than 4 billion assignments for learning activities and tests. As well, the higher education in the kingdom was already adopting e-learning platforms and solutions and were mature enough to do a transition without any engagement from the Ministry of Education or any guidance through that. The maturity in the university level reached high as they are using those technology platforms from pre-academic. As part of the opportunity to accelerate reform, the kingdom also focused on enhancing learning outcomes by developing school readiness, orienting method for teaching, and learning towards fundamental life skills. The kingdom also has expanded across the quality of early childhood education by constructing new classrooms, partnering with private sector, engaging with educational stakeholder, hiring ECE teachers, and so on. In addition, reform includes updating learning content, developing student plans, and making curricular adjustment. It was an opportunity to add this to the system. So the kingdom introduced new subjects and textbook embracing 21st century skills, promoting global citizenship, and value of peace, tolerance, mature understanding, and cultural diversity. The curricula and learning content also prioritize fundamental skills such as literacy, numeracy, and science, while adding critical thinking and life skills that are relevant to student lives and future success. To integrate all these new subjects, the Ministry of Education in Saudi Arabia has implemented a new tri-semester system that increased the total number of actual schooling days to 183 days per year. This provides teachers with more opportunity to support student learning and enable the additional extracurricular activities, which enrich student lives and support character development. The ministry also introduced multiple pathways in secondary education that enable skill development based on continuous analysis of current and future labor market. The Kingdom also established more than 70 applied colleges offering multiple options for professional programs. And we can highlight from our response and recovery from COVID-19 crisis the importance of having a clear vision, shared goals, and active leadership, participation in education, the crucial role of strategic and evidence-based planning and investment, the necessity of leveraging and mobilizing resources through intended goals, and the significance of building resilience by embracing agility and adjusting practices to respond to changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad. I think you touched upon a number of very important discussions, and I think the attention towards skills and enabling the next generation of students to acquire important 21st century skills is an important goal that is highlighted by the Ministry of Education. And I think it's also something that will help us become more global citizens and engaged in the international community. I move now to Mr. Muannad Al-Isa from the Ministry of Human Resources and Social Development, who will give us a glimpse into the efforts that the Kingdom is undergoing as it pertains to gender equality. Of course, over the past several years, Saudi Arabia has transformed its legislative sort of context in terms of gearing or focusing predominantly on empowering women and trying to move them into the labor market and providing them with rights broadly defined. And many of the ministries represented here spearheaded, efforts to improving access to women and enabling their participation more broadly in the labor market. I think one of our biggest achievements over the past several years has been our improvement in the ranking of the Women, Business and the Law report for 2020, where we saw a remarkable increase in our ranking and score more broadly. So my question to you, Mr. Muannad, is in the context of this rapid and substantial improvement over the last few years as it pertains to the topic of gender more broadly, can talk to us a little bit about what these reforms look like and what are some of the initiatives that we should look forward to in the coming years to really bring up those rates for labor force participation amongst women, and also in providing an enabling environment that allows them to allows families more broadly to balance between work and other household responsibilities. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Faisal. I'm my honor to be with you guys. Honestly, first of all, I apologize for the network. If there's any issues, I've been struggling in hearing some of the voice, so I'll try to be as fast as possible. And please let me know if there's any need for revisiting or restating some words if there's any issue or interruptions. Well, while many countries actually are struggling with job losses and rise of unemployment in the last 2 years due to the COVID, in Saudi Arabia, the efforts and transformational reforms and initiatives towards achieving the Saudi Vision 2030, which started prior to the pandemic, has contributed significantly in achieving a number of the sustainable development goals as well. I'll be focusing today in highlighting the achievements and the efforts related to the 5th SDG, which is gender equality, and how women participation rate in Saudi Arabia has increased significantly from around 17 to 33.5% between the years of 2017 and 2021, exceeding the 2030 target of 30%. The female unemployment has also dropped drastically from around 30 plus 32% to less than 20%. And the Saudi women in the managerial and leadership roles also has increased from around 25 or 28% up to more than 40%. Now, the labor market over the last 2 to 3 years has gone through unprecedented transformation. Number of Saudis employed in the private sector has rose from more than 200,000, which is equivalent to almost 12% increase just in the last 2 years in the private sector. And the majority of those are women as a result of the recent reforms targeting the female employment. What was achieved in the last 2 years on increasing the Saudi female participation actually was taking as benchmark for other OECD countries almost 20 years. And we have achieved it in almost 2 years. And today, with the Saudi Vision 2030, it has contributed to achieving many accomplishments aside from that, and it was recognized at international level. And one of which is the goal that we'll be speaking more on today, which is increasing the Saudi women participation rate in the labor market. And one of the most recent achievements that was distinguished for Saudi Arabia is the progress for the second year in a row in the Women, Business and the Law WBL Report 2021, which is a global measure of women legal reforms published by the World Bank Group. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has scored 80% in the WBL 2021, raising from up to from 70.6 in the previous years, and the report placed Saudi Arabia in 2021 as the first among the other GCC countries, and also the second in the Arab world. The substantial increase in Saudi women employment was across all sectors. For example, the increase in the construction sector was 9%, the increase in the manufacturing was 17%, and the increase in the hospitality and food and beverage was almost 40%. Not to mention that we have sustained the quota or ratio of the females in the sectors like healthcare and education. Now the question is, how did this happen? What was the lead to achieve such dramatic changes in a very short period of time? Well, of course, there are many factors that contributed into this. The first was the policies reforms, which have definitely big impact on making it easier for women to work compared to the years or actually decades before that. And in fact, the reforms, such as allowing women to drive, has indeed contributed positively in the commuting to work issues. There were also reforms in the family law, like guardianship, and reforms in the labor law, such as removing barriers for women to work in certain sectors. Those are considered dangerous, like industrial jobs, or for example, working for late shifts. Also, we introduced reforms forbidding any gender-based inequality in employment, and not to mention the impact of nitaqat rule, which is a policy that forces companies to hire quota of Saudis versus expats, which have created more opportunities of jobs for Saudi women. And as I mentioned earlier, the increase of women in the labor force was not by the government hiring. It was all, in fact, because of driven by the private sector hiring those women. And those reforms which took place right after the launch of the Saudi vision, actually have started to show results sooner than what was expected. And we have proudly achieved, as I mentioned earlier, the 2030 goals way before the target and almost 10 years ahead of the plan. Now, beside the policies, there are also so many other factors. I would say also the strong education system, in particular for women, along with the structural changes that took place or driven by the new Saudi labor market strategy, in addition to the private sector desire or willingness by the employers who found a great value and a great opportunity by having women joining the labor force and increasing the productivity in general. And all of that has contributed positively to the increase of Saudi females labor force participation rate. Now, after that, highlighting into the achievements and what was and how we obtained it, let me please describe in the next few minutes a little bit about the strategy that was followed, what was the actions being taken, the theme that we focused on, and the initiatives that were the most contributor into this factor. Well, basically, we have identified 4 key pillars in the strategy or themes to be focusing on. First one was the awareness, development, and supportive ecosystem, and also the legislations. In terms of the awareness, of course, we have focused on building positive image and inspiration, and focusing also on having inspirational, influential women in the labor market. In terms of development, we have identified key competencies for training. We have identified certain courses or training that are targeting Saudi women who are joining the workforce at different levels. There were very selected leadership courses, as well as efforts in attracting talents into joining the labor market. And in terms of the supportive ecosystem, the focus was in building diversity and inclusion culture at the workplace all over. And the last but not least, in the legislations, we have highlighted some, given some examples of the reforms. I think also the HR practices toward equal opportunities was very essential and very important to promote or to lift up the private sector toward our targets. Now, this was built by the collaboration of all the stakeholders, internally and externally. And I mean by this, all the ministries engaged, all the entities, whether in the government sector, in the private sector, as well as in the society, to ensure that there is the right integration and alignment among them. And the most important thing was the strong leadership commitment to drive all of this into the success. Now, the last point I would like to highlight, Faisal, is the key initiatives that were executed and currently under execution by the Ministry of Human Resource and Social Development toward continuing the success that was happening and also ensure that we have a sustainable achievements in this file. Well, the first one is the awareness campaigns. Also, we have introduced leadership programs in partnership with world-leading institutes for providing executive training. And for that, the beneficiaries were around 1,700 Saudi women leaders who has joined different leadership programs. There was also a program that was introduced called Wusul program. This is targeting subsidizing the transportation of women to work. And the beneficiaries of this Wusul program is almost 100,000+ Saudi women in the private sector. Another distinguished program was the Qurra, and it is like a daycare support for the mothers or for the working mothers, and the beneficiaries exceeded more than 5,000. Beside this, we have another initiative for encouraging women to join boards or boards of directors in the private sector, including the awareness and special trainings for them. Also, we have a promotion for the HR gender balance practices along different companies, as I mentioned. And the last and not least, which is very critical initiative, was supporting and enabling new work forms, which will help and helped already the females or women in joining the labor market. Those new work forms are the non-traditional types of work forms, like the telework, which is enabling women to work from home and leveraging the technology that was a bliss during the COVID. Also, we have introduced reforms for the flexible work, and this was a great achievement by letting the employers and employees, especially women, have flexibility in selecting hours to work or specific hours based on their needs. And the last work type is Freelancer Program. We have introduced a number of Freelancer Program and subsidies, and not a surprise that we say that almost 70% of those who get the freelancer certificates are actually females. All of those initiatives that have started are always being reviewed and updated and get enhanced and studied and also analyzed to increase the value and increase the impact, and also to get more females in the labor markets as we started and as we achieved, and to continue having that in the next upcoming few years, along with all other goals and objectives that contribute into this fact. Thank you very much, Faisal.
Thank you, Manad. I think excellent overview. I think you talked about some of the most important initiatives that we've done in Saudi Arabia. I was fortunate enough to work on some of these projects, specifically Wusul and Qurra, so I know exactly what went into the thinking around those programs and how impactful they were. I think, as you correctly pointed out, childcare costs and transportation costs are some of the biggest barriers for women's participation in the labor force, and I think this is and what we're focusing on now is scale and trying to get to a level that is significant for us to really increase those numbers. And yes, I think the other aspect of opportunities and getting women into the right positions will not only improve outcomes in the short term, but I think in the long term, it will also signal to aspiring young women to pursue equally ambitious careers and really bridge that gap. I think that's an excellent point. Okay, moving now to, thank you, Mohamed, once again. Moving now to our colleague, Dr. Mit'ab from NIWA. Saudi Arabia is involved in, obviously, in many aspects to rehabilitate and to protect marine environments all over Saudi Arabia, while promoting the preservation of coastal areas up and all surrounding the various sides of Saudi Arabia. Many national stakeholders are developing and implementing plans to address threats to land and marine life, and protect these endangered species, with the overall goal of restoring the natural ecological balance of these ecosystems. Despite the development that we've seen in the aquaculture sector in Saudi Arabia over the last 3 years, it remains a developing sector and something that we're still actively trying to build out and to really expand when it comes to production volume, expansion, and the effective economic development of the kingdom. I think now we're really starting to see the relationship between the environment and economic development in a very direct way. So, Dr. Mit'ab, the question is, it's obvious that we realize the significance of scientific research in the field of the environment and how it contributes to policies that protect the environment. Can you explain to us a little bit about the research projects that we are actively investing in, and the areas that they are focusing on, and how Saudi Arabia is planning to adopt the outcomes or the knowledge that is produced by this research? And if you could give us a glimpse as to what some of the preliminary findings of these research projects are.
Thank you, Faisal. Yeah, I will talk today about one of the most recent research work done by Saudi Arabia. Before that, I will just give you a little background about the environmental sector and the environmental protection efforts in Saudi Arabia. As we know, the environmental protection efforts were at a lower level in the past until 2016. Saudi Arabia initiated for the first time environmental Ministry of Environment. So Saudi Arabia raised the environment efforts to be a ministerial level because of the importance of such a sector. Following that, in 2018, Saudi Arabia approved the National Environment Strategy. And the outcome of this environmental strategy was the establishment of new institutional setup, which have 5 centers specialized in one of each in the area of the environment. I can name them: Center for Wildlife, Center for Vegetation Cover, Center for Waste Management, Center for Meteorology, and Center for Environmental Compliance. And as a financial arm and enabler for this centers are the Environment Fund. And in parallel to this, another enforcement authority was established under the supervision of Ministry of Interior, which is the Special Forces for Environmental Security. And as a let's say regulatory enablers was the issuance of environmental laws, waste management laws, meteorology laws. And part of Saudi Arabia, efforts toward the global environmental protection, and in the middle of the crisis, the COVID-19 crisis, and while Saudi Arabia was the president of the G20 summit, Saudi Arabia initiated 2 global initiatives concerning the environment, one for conservation of global coral reef, and the other one about preservation of the land. And it was adopted and approved by the G20 summit, and now it's in progress toward the conserving the coral reefs and the land degradation, let's say. And recently in 2021, Saudi Arabia announced 2 big initiatives. We call them Saudi Green Initiatives, which targeting planting 10 billion trees in the next few decades, and a regional initiative to plant 100 billion trees in the Middle East. So without further delay, I will just take you one of the initiatives by one of these centers. So there was a mission just started early this year to explore and expedite the research efforts in the Red Sea. And as we know, Red Sea was one of the, it's actually one of the richest seas in the world by its biodiversity. And it has more than 1,200 species of fish and marine mammals, a lot of coral reefs, seagrass, mangroves, and also in addition to that, its salinity is higher 20% than the average seawater worldwide. So the mission, which using the 2 vessels, 2 research vessels, one of them is a global known vessel called Ocean X Explorer, which is mainly specialized in the deep sea exploration and research work. And the other one, which is mainly focusing on the shallow water and coastal area, called Al Azizi. This mission took about 18 weeks, started early February of this year and just concluded last month. And it was under the supervision of National Center for Wildlife and in collaboration with 2 or 3 universities in Saudi Arabia: King Fahd University of Petroleum and Minerals, King Abdulaziz University, and King Abdullah University of Science and Technology, and also in collaboration with 3 newly established, let's say, mega projects, which targeting the ecotourism, mainly Amala, Red Sea, and Neom. And with these 2 vessels, there was a lot of about 80 plus participants, researchers, students, scientists. And this mission, the outcome, the expected outcome of this mission was to first try to discover a new biodiversity or biological discovery in the Red Sea. Also big fauna discovery and study these mammals or the big fauna like whales, dolphins, and such mammals, and also to study the what you call it eDNA, or study the biodiversity through technique or called eDNA, which is environmental DNA, by taking samples of seawater, which may contain some of the species of the species, either fish or whatever animals can be living in the Red Sea, and or any let's say something like waste of these animals. And by analyzing these samples, we can recognize which animals available in the Red Sea and the area targeted in the Red Sea, and also we can link this findings with the reported database available in the what we call it as a let's say reported species worldwide. Also, one of the outcome is that identifying the properties, physical, chemical properties of the Red Sea, dissolved oxygen, let's say salinity in the Red Sea, the temperature and such properties. That the fifth and the last outcome is the try to develop what we call it let's say habitat map for the coral reefs, let's say seagrass, mangrove, turtles in the Red Sea, in order to identify their distribution, their let's say where are they available and what about their condition. So this mission started as I said early February from Jeddah and the area to the south, and then the second phase was toward Rabah, and for every phase the mission concluded that phase with having landed on the port of that targeted city. So it started from Jeddah. Second phase was Rabah. Third phase was Yamba, and the last one toward the north is the Liba. And just as I said, late June. Also, part of this effort, there was a coordination with these schools, universities. I just mentioned them to have the students part of the team from different levels. Also, there was live coverage, making some dialogue between the scientists and the students and the professors in this university. Of course, part of documenting this efforts was collaboration with the Japanese media authority NHK to develop a documentary which will be published soon about this mission, which will be high resolution, showing the biodiversity and things that the kingdom or the Red Sea have. I can share with you let's say very quick win findings, let's say of course the statistics 133 of course along with this vessels there was submersible either manned or unmanned submersible, who collected about 8,000 organic samples and about 150 corals, live corals samples. The team was able to watch more than 1,400 let's say big or megafauna from either from the helicopter accompanied with this vessels or from the vessel itself. Also we saw part of some of the dolphins and the whales, which used to be reported as endangered, or even maybe not reported before in the Red Sea. Also some whales which we not seen since 1980s. So let's say quick wins about things that comes outcome of this mission, and still the findings now is being analyzed and being reported, and it will be published either through articles or through things the documentary which I just mentioned. So with this, I will conclude my speech about Saudi Arabia effort in this field, and thank you.
Thank you, Dr. The next question is also for you, but we're a little bit tight on time, Dr. But I wanted to quickly transition to the next question, which is about life on land. I think one of the most interesting things that has happened over the past several years is people's understanding about the environmental diversity that exists in Saudi Arabia in the northern, southern, eastern, and western parts of the kingdom. I think the exposure and the pictures and the realities that we are dealing with now have really opened people's eyes into the opportunities and the importance of environmental preservation and sustainability. I think deforestation and desertification are two of the biggest challenges that we are facing as a result of climate change and other sort of issues and challenges that we are all well aware of. Can you describe to us very quickly what are some of the efforts that the ministry and the government is undertaking in order to tackle these issues, as well as protecting land and rare species as well?
Okay, so moving from, let's say, from the sea to the land. Again, one of the efforts Saudi Arabia just announced late 2021 was the Saudi Green Initiative and Middle East Green Initiative. So without going further into the introduction, which I just shared with you, the establishment of the centers, the laws, the Saudi Global Initiative with the G20 presidency efforts. His Royal Highness the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia announced in 2021 the initiative to plant 10 billion trees in the next decades in Saudi Arabia, also 100 billion trees in the Middle East. So what's the aim of this initiative is to improve the quality of life, protect future generations in the kingdom, increase also the Saudi Arabia dependency on clean energy, and offset the impact of fossil oil and combat climate change. So the aspiration again is to increase the vegetation cover and combat desertification, increase the share of clean energy, conserve biodiversity and ecosystems, reduce greenhouse gases emissions, and the transition to a circular economy. In numbers, we are targeting to plant 10 billion trees within the kingdom, which equivalent to a rehabilitation of 40 million hectare of land, which will result in reducing the CO2 emission by 278 metric ton per annum. And will, of course, one of the targeted ambition is to have 30% of Saudi Arabia total area as a, let's say, protected areas for wildlife. Saudi Arabia is a big in its area. It's about 2.25 million square kilometers. So you can imagine achieving 30% of its area to be a protected area, either let's say land or sea protected area, or let's say coastal or marine. In order to achieve this, there is a Supreme Committee for what we call this GI Saudi Green Initiative, headed by His Royal Highness the Crown Prince. And under this committee, there is ministerial working committees and teams toward achieving this target. So the pillars of achieving this target, mainly, let's say, 4 pillars. I can name them: raise vegetation and reduce land degradation, protect wildlife habitat and biodiversity, conserve resources, promote sustainability. And let's say raising the vegetation, we are targeting 4 themes: urban greening, environmental domain plantation, agriculture plantation, highway and railroad plantation. In the protecting wildlife pillar, we are targeting terrestrial area and marine and coastal area. In the pillar of conserving resources, we are targeting waste management through minimization, collection, treatment, and valorization, and promoting sustainability in 2 dimensions: environmental awareness, community engagement, and raising the environmental compliance. So things to be considered in achieving this 10 billion trees. We trying to, of course, and we will be focusing on utilizing the native plant species. We are not looking to have like invasive plants to be planted. We are targeting our local plant to be planted using renewable water resources. We are not targeting to use any fresh or let's say not recycled or not like regenerative or renewable water resource, and maintaining the ecological balance. Of course, one of the considerations we need to take into account social and economic sustainability, one of the let's say consideration here. Now we are performing, let's say, a detailed study which will answer questions about this SGI ambition, how we will achieve it. I can list these questions very quickly. We are looking to see how many trees we can plant sustainably in the kingdom, which flora species should we plant, what are the optimal location for a tree plantation, what types of renewable water resources can be utilized, what are the requirements for other plantation enablers like irrigation networks, nurseries, seed banks. Another question, when can the kingdom achieve its target, the 10 billion trees? And what is the estimated cost to achieve this target? And what are the overall social, economic, environmental benefits for achieving this target? And finally, what are the potential risks like fires, diseases that this plantation target may cause, if any, and how should we mitigate this? So the outcome, we are expecting to finish the study by next year, first quarter. So we'll come up with a detailed strategic master plan, detailed implementation plan, of course, control system, dashboards, a platform, partnership management plan, media communication plans. So in order to achieve this, I have too many examples to mention in each of the pillars which I just mentioned to you, which many like either public or private sectors contributed toward achieving these targets, either by in the vegetation cover, wildlife, or other like pillars I just shared or mentioned them. So this is in brief the Saudi Arabia efforts toward land, let's say, preservation, and just I mean I know it will be took me maybe another hour to mention these initiative or efforts in detail, but I just want to stop and leave the floor.
Thank you, Dr. Metab. I think the environment and agriculture agenda in Saudi Arabia is going to be one of the most interesting and complex policy challenges that we face in the next couple of years, and we're all obviously looking forward to the Saudi Green Initiative and the Middle East Green Initiative and the improvements that it will bring in terms of improving environmental sustainability and quality more broadly. Moving now to Dr. Fatima Al-Waif, who is going to talk to us a little bit about one of the most important topics, I would say, data and how it powers everything that it is that we're doing today as we pursue the Sustainable Development Goals. Dr. Fatima, as you know, the General Authority for Statistics and has played a central role in the data transformation in the transformation of the data ecosystem in Saudi Arabia. Data is king and is something that we all obviously need to prioritize, and we can see how different ministries and different government entities have adopted and really incorporated data into their everyday work. It has become a part of the DNA in Saudi Arabia, and is something that really empowers all of our public policies that we see being rolled out over the last 5 years, and of course moving forward. talk to us a little bit, Dr. Fatima, about the initiatives that you guys are working on in order to make data more of a tool that governments can use to inform public policies, but also give us an insight into the challenges that you face as we're trying to construct this idea of a single source of truth and the importance of cross-sector integration.
Yeah, thank you, Faisal, and good evening, everyone. As you mentioned, Faisal, that the GSTAT play an important role, really, and crucial role in facilitating data collections, validation of the data, and also coordinate all the effort from different ministries in order to, show the performance or the effort of Saudi Arabia to the whole world. And as you know, يعني احنا part of this country as well. I mean, a part of this world, as the other country was facing an issues or difficulties with continuing work during pandemic. We face the same things, but we utilizing this time in order to reforming all the work that has been we have been working on GSTAT, specifically on term of data availability, data collection methodology, and so on. So basically, we've been working during the last two years, let's say, on a transformation to whole GSTAT, or the General Authority of Statistics at Saudi Arabia, in order to reform all the data quality and the coverage, and also focusing on accuracy of this data, timelines of these data, and comparability and consistency of this data. Also, we focus on second pillar, which is data accessibility. So we really would like to make it very easy to all our end user, either nationally or internationally, to access all the data available within GSTAT and using it with the details that we have. So one of these initiatives that we've been working on, and which is already completed on 2021, which is we launched the Statistical Database on December 2021, where we allow the user to register on this statistical database, and we make it available for everyone to go and see and also analyze and investigate on the data that is available on GSTAT. Also, we focus on engaging our stakeholders. So we've been working with many entities on Saudi Arabia, different ministries, and also different authorities, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, and others, in order to just to engage them on our work, and also to collaborate with them specifically for reflecting those performance and calculating the indicators of SDG. Maybe also the fourth pillar that we've been working on this transformation is focusing on our people and the organizations, and also building a capacity, attracting more talent people, also using an expert from all the world in order to begin building the capacity of our department, and also to work on the new product that we have. Maybe one of the most important things within this transformation that introducing the International Indicators Department. This International Indicator Department is responsible for data collection and facilitating the data collection, either this data collected from an administrative or internally from a survey that is conducted on GSTAT. And they've been doing a lot of work in terms of analyzing the gaps on all international report that Saudi Arabia is supposed to be participate on. So it's not just the SDG, but we are participating almost on 12 international reports that our international department is working on, and reporting these and publishing it every year. Now, there has been a lot of work to be done within building even the capacity of this department in terms of attracting the talent, and also engaging more expert on this department in order to adhere to the guidelines and the methodology of the international the methodology that is needed to achieve and to calculate the SDG indicators. So far, out of 200 149 indicators that is requested for SDG. We've been reporting 119 indicators, and we are planning to increase this to almost 65% on 2023. The other things that we've been working on, which I consider maybe the most important initiatives that it's got even support from the government, which is the census program. We know that the census program and the population, the population count is a part of many of the international indicators and even in national indicators, and a part of the indicators that is calculated on all the ministries. So the census project has been conducted this year after a long journey of preparation and adopting, of course, the new technology from using GIS, using satellite images to allocate a location where people living and so on, and also adopting the new methodology for data processing after we collect the data. So far, we end up this census data collection phase. We end up two phases right now. The first phase was ended in February, which is the address canvassing, and then the second phase was ended on June 2022. So we are really looking forward the result of this census project, because of course it will affect on accuracy, on having or the coverage for more indicators within the SDG. So as we said before, that out of these indicators, we are aiming to achieve 65% of these indicators by 2023, and sure, 100% of coverage of these indicators will be in 2030. So also beside this, we are participating in a lot of national, let's say, program and facilitating the work of data collection for a lot of other indicators, specifically for those indicators related to the achievement of the vision of 2030. And of course, this is with the collaboration with many ministries and authorities in order to increase all the data accuracy, and also the timelines of reporting such report, and to stick with the timeline of reporting such indicators. So this is mainly what we have. And of course, in terms of a business statistic, within this transformation, let's say, of GStat, we are also planning to have more products. Right now, we are handling in the business statistic different, let's say, topic, either social topic or social statistic, economic statistic, and also the spatial and resources statistic. And of course, we are planning to increase the product that we have in each of these sectors in order to cover more indicators that is required either nationally or internationally. So these are, let's say, the most initiative that we've been working on. And of course, adopting the technology and also the benefit from the multi-sources that we have here and there, specifically the administrative data and the data from the big data that we have. So our plan just to adjust and analyze all the data sources and use it on producing all our statistics in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fatma. I think one of the other important transformations that we're going through is the data transformation using survey and admin data sets to really help us build out our policy capacity. I know we're a little bit tight on time, so I'll open the floor to our attendees to ask our esteemed panelists any questions about the topics or areas that they covered during their interjections. Abdurrahman, is there anyone that's raising their hands? Because I don't think that I can see.
Yes, we can check, and the audience can post their questions in the chat, and then we can distribute the questions as soon as we receive them.
Okay. So Abdurrahman will wait for people to post questions.
Yes, or if can Turkey help us, if they can give the floor to audience members that raise their hands.
Yeah. Okay, while we're waiting for one of the questions to get posted, I'll ask a question just to get things going. I think Dr. Fatima, I think what you talked about is probably something that I relate to a lot because of the work that we're doing in the context of labor and social policy. How do you see, and you mentioned a little bit about how the types of products that you guys are offering. What are the linkages that you're drawing now between, how are you trying to understand the needs of the various policymakers, or what are some of the key questions that policymakers are asking for right now? And then how are you drawing, or how is GSAT drawing this linkage between admin and survey data, and how both of these things can be used in tandem with one another?
Okay, yeah, in terms of engagement, of course, يعني before we launch any products, there will be a step to come up with this product, what we call it the GSPPM model. It's well-known model that we are following in terms of conducting a new product. One of these items or elements to come up with a new product is to identify the need. And identifying the need, we mean by understanding why we need this product and what we would like to measure, and not in GSTAT only and in the national level, also in the international level. And to cover all the need, of course, we have to engage the main stakeholders on these products or related to these products. For example, if we are talking about the LFS labor market, so we are going to engage, for example, HRSD, we are going to engage LMEP and so on, to understand first what is the need out of these products, and try to cover all these needs at the beginning to address it on the designing of the survey, on the data collection, also and the sampling and the results. So we're really following the GSPPM model on conducting such a product, and we are engaging the main stakeholders before we publish and to start such a new products. So this is in terms of the engagement of all entity, let's say, before we publishing or we start any new products. And of course, as you said, after this, there will be any the phases and process until we got the result out of these new surveys and out of these, let's say, new products that we are identifying. طبعا احنا we are taking it on gradually, so we have a plan, of course, for all these sectors on statistic, either social, economics, and spatial, to have new products on 2023. And we have started already some of these new products on 2022, but it has been also some of it postponed after census. As you know, many of these products as well depend on the census results, so it has been postponed in 2023. We can see, or we can say that we doubled our product. We will be doubled our product by 2023, inshallah.
Thank you, Dr. Fatima. I think people are trying to raise their hands, but there is a problem with the system. Does anyone want to ask another question?
السلام عليكم. أنا عندي سؤال.
تفضل.
أسئلة هل أهداف التنمية المستدامة 2030 متقاربة من رؤية المملكة 2030؟
Say the question again.
أقول هل أهداف التنمية المستدامة 2030 متقاربة من رؤية المملكة 2030؟
Okay. I'll answer this question. Yes, I think broadly defined, the two agendas correlate very strongly with one another. And I think, yes, they definitely talk about or trying to tackle similar ideas. Okay, any other questions? Abdulrahman, do you want to, is there anything else that you need before we close?
We'll share our email, and if anybody has any questions, we will direct them right to the panelists, the distinguished panelists, and we will get back to all the members if necessary.
Perfect. So allow me to conclude. So thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you to my esteemed colleagues and panelists for joining us today and giving us an insight into the excellent work that the government is doing in pursuing the Sustainable Development Goals. As everyone can see, the challenge is immense, and in order for us to perform well and to really fulfill on our commitments to the SDG agenda, first and foremost, but also our people, and trying to promote better well-being and quality of life. There's a lot to be done, and the SDGs act as an important blueprint and framework to help us think about these challenges. We are looking forward to next year's high-level political forum, where we will be sharing the voluntary national review for 2023, and which will encapsulate everything that we have been doing in the context of Saudi Arabia across all of the SDGs, and hopefully we'll have a lot more to report next year on what we have accomplished and really what the road ahead will look like. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us today, and I look forward to our next interaction. Thank you all.